Hello, Misfits. This is Dave Lukas, and welcome to another episode of the Misfit Entrepreneur, where it's our job to help you unleash your inner misfit and break through to higher levels of success, wealth, and fulfillment by bringing you the best information and insight from the world's top entrepreneurs with a specific focus on their misfit side, the specific traits, habits, and secrets that have allowed them to thrive and succeed. As a reminder, if you're new to watching us on our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button below, give this video a like and comment as well. We do our best to respond to all comments as timely as possible. This week's Misfit Entrepreneur is Pete Reese. Pete is the president of RealVest Properties, a land developer and investment company with nearly 2 decades of real estate experience as a broker and investor. Pete has successfully purchased and sold hundreds of pieces of real estate for a profit over the years for himself and on behalf of his clients. He did $3.5 million in revenue in 2022 with his land flipping business and development business, and he did $10 million in 2023. When I learned about what Pete was doing, I had to have him on because he's found this unique niche in land flipping. It really is a fascinating way to create income and earn a living that Pete's been teaching others to do for several years now. So I wanted to have him on to explain the concept, how it works compared to other types of real estate investing, and how people can use it to create that financial freedom they're looking for. So Pete, are you ready to unleash your inner misfit?
I'm ready to go. I appreciate the intro, Dave.
Yeah, it's great to have you on, man. And like I said, you've kind of found this unique niche in what you're doing and everything that I think is really cool and that people need to know about. But before we get into all that, take 5 minutes or so and just tell us your story. How'd you get to where you're at?
Sure. Yeah, well, my story starts like a lot of other people that got into real estate. It started when myself and my wife bought our first home. It was a FHA loan. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,700 square foot home here in San Diego County. And at the time, this was, I think, 2001. At the time, it cost, $205,000, I think was the purchase price, which today sounds crazy compared to what has happened over the past 20 some years in real estate. But it was our entry into real estate. The house needed a lot of cosmetic work, decided to do a lot of that work myself, questionable quality. but in hindsight, we actually did really well on the home. We only held it for 2 years and profited about $50,000. And I thought at the time that I was a real estate mogul. It wasn't because of my renovation skills, but mostly because of the market had improved a little bit. But regardless, I kind of caught the bug, and we ended up buying another fixer home to kind of live in as our primary residence, fix that up as well, sold that, and then started to actually flip homes as a business. So we, bought and sold a bunch of properties up until the point of about 2008 when the market crashed and fell off a cliff here in Southern California and much of the rest of the country as well. So at that time, we kind of got out of real estate investing. Thankfully, a couple of years before that, I had gotten my broker's license simply to get access to more deals and to show myself properties and write offers for myself on the MLS. So that's why I got my license. But when the market crashed, I saw an opportunity there to actually help the banks sell their properties. So that's what I did. I focused on being an REO listing broker for about 2 years or so. And that was a crazy business, but I was thankful to have business at the time when a lot of other people in real estate were really struggling. So I did that for a while. I got from that, I transitioned into working with a lot of other large investment companies, kind of just identifying properties for them to buy and, their flips or rental holds, that type of thing. I actually got into luxury real estate for a little bit of time as well. And then kind of transitioned out of real estate altogether, working with my wife, had been a blogger for many years, travel and lifestyle blogger. And she had a bunch of people kind of always asking her, like, hey, how do I do this? Can you show me how to do this? So we decided to formally create an education business around that niche. So that was kind of my main focus for about 3 or 4 years, just running that business for her. And we were really successful, had, 5,000 plus premium students and everything in that. We were doing a lot of traveling during that time as a family, about 150 days a year. We were traveling on trips, family of 5. I've got 3 girls. And so that was a really cool part of life. But I knew that I had that bug to get back into real estate investing. That was kind of always been my thing and always really what I wanted to do. didn't really want to get back into flipping homes. So I was just out there searching for another niche that kind of resonated with me. Stumbled into some people talking about land flipping. I never had an idea that I'd be interested in selling land. It just didn't seem like a good fit for me. But what made sense to me was the business model itself. It was a short-term strategy, meaning buy off market, maybe do some minor improvements, and then resell on the market, and short hold times, like 90 days, not buying a piece of land in the path of progress and waiting 20 years for it to be worth more. This was a completely different thing that I'd ever heard of. So I kind of went down that rabbit hole, learned everything I could about it, and sort of went all in. 2021, did about 1.2 million. That was the first year we flipped any pieces of property. March of 2021, flipped our first piece of land, the full, resold it. And that first year ended up about 1.2 million and some change in revenue and about 50% gross profit margin. 2023 did about 3.5 million and just under 50% gross profit margin, 47%, I believe. And then 2023, we're not quite going to hit 10 million, but we should be just south of that. And yeah, the 2024 looking to do a lot more than that. So it's been a fun road, and the business model itself really kind of resonates with me. So that's why I went all in on it.
Well, that's what I want to unpack. And so I want to start high level, and then we'll kind of go down from there, right? So just first and foremost, as a high level, you kind of gave a little bit on it there, but what is land flipping?
Yeah. So land flipping, the way I do it, and I'm sure there are investors that do it in many different ways, but the way that works for me is that we market to property owners directly. And most of the time it's either direct mail, like we send out offer letters. We've been also doing some pay-per-click advertising and some cold calling recently as well. But so we generate the deal off market directly from the property owner, and then we evaluate it, see if it needs any sort of value add, we call it. It could be something like brush clearing, could be a survey, could be a lot split, could be a number of things. And sometimes we'll do some value add to the property, and then we'll put that on the property on the market and resell it. So as quickly as possible.
And so with that said, then as a backdrop, so that's what the flipping part is. Obviously, you're buying it for a price. If you need to do any of that type of improvement, you do that, and then you put it right back on the market. A lot of times, you don't have to do that, right? You're just buying it off market at a good price, and then turning around and putting it on the market, for a profit.
Yep.
Take us through the process of how you do it. So, give us the anatomy of a deal. Right? What does it look like? What are the elements of it? What do you maybe do differently that's led to so much success for you? Just walk us through it.
Yeah. So for the great majority of our time in the land flipping business, it was pretty simple, meaning that how we generated the deals and everything. Basically, I've put together a list of property owners in a particular area. It could be a particular county. I say we have certain criteria that we try to stick to, or we like the most. Like, for instance, I might do 10-acre plus properties in Columbus County, North Carolina, or something like that. And obviously, we'll do a mailer with a bunch of different counties and things like that. But we like the larger properties in the rural areas. That's pretty much what we mostly buy. And so what we'll do is we'll put together a list. We'll figure out kind of the average values for that particular area. We'll actually come up with an offer price for each of those properties. It's basically based off of average for averages for that particular area. We send out a 2-page letter to those property owners. First page is kind of explaining who we are, why we're contacting them, what we can do for them. Second page is an actual 1-page offer. So it's very simple, based off of average values for a particular area. And obviously there's a large percentage backed off of that, from retail pricing. And we send those letters out, a bunch of them. We could, there's been months of we've sent out 100,000 letters. Probably on average, we're about 50,000 letters per month is what we've been sending out. And that gets the phone ringing, gets people emailing, texting, basically responding to that stuff. And then when people call in, respond, we look at the property in detail, see if we can put that deal together. Sometimes, since those are based off of averages and we're not looking at each property individually before we send out those offer letters, sometimes we're off, sometimes we're too high, sometimes we're too low, sometimes we're right on. But, and sometimes they're properties that we don't even want to buy in the first place. Maybe they're wetlands, or maybe they don't have any access, they're landlocked, something like that. But regardless, we see if we can work out a deal. My team basically we'll communicate with them. We'll decide if we want to buy that property, and if so, like what price would make sense. And then from there, we kick off our due diligence process as soon as we get a property under contract. And our due diligence process is pretty extensive these days, and that's really built up over time. Basically, when I started, I didn't even really realize there was a whole process that needed to be done for due diligence. We were just kind of looking over the basics. And as long as the title checked out and everything was good, we would close on the deal. But I've since realized that there's a lot that can be gained by having an extensive due diligence process. So basically, we're sending out a photographer to the property to walk the property, drone photos, drone videos, all that kind of stuff. We have a broker opinion that we get for every single property, because we're reselling these properties, with a local land agent or broker. So we kind of loop them in on the acquisition process and get their opinion on what they think they can resell the property for, what they think it's worth. We're also, investigating the title, digging, looking into any exceptions on the title that are sort of abnormal, any easements, anything like that. So we dig into that process. And yeah, so that's kind of, and then we also, do all our standard calls to the county, the city, whoever is kind of in charge of that property, asking them about potential buildability, access to utilities, all that kind of stuff is part of our process. So we have a big checklist of stuff that we go through on each and every deal. We're basically looking for red flags. If anything kind of is out of the ordinary, unexpected, something we didn't know about when we got under contract with that deal, we'll either, if it's bad enough, we'll obviously let the seller know that we can't continue with the deal because we found out that it used to be a dump site, or, and that's happened, or if there's something about the property which was not quite what we thought it was, or not quite what was represented to us by the seller, then we might have a discussion with them and see if they'd be open to reducing the price in order for us to continue. So renegotiations do happen sometimes, but we're trying to close on the deal like we signed it. But if we discover some additional information that makes that kind of not a good idea, then we have to adjust. So
that makes sense.
So yeah, we close all of our transactions with an escrow title attorney. Whatever is standard for that state. And then, we'll do any sort of value add stuff that needs to be done as well, right after we close. Maybe it's some brush clearing. Sometimes some of that stuff can be done even before we close, a perk test or a survey or something like that. So we'll get the ball rolling on some of that stuff before we even close sometimes. Then when it's ready to go, we just list it with that broker or agent that we've been in discussions with. And hopefully, and we list it at a price that's going to be aggressive and attract attention on the market. We're not trying to get full retail on a lot of these properties. Sometimes, depending on how active or busy the area or how premium of a property is, we'll maybe list it at 10 to 20% below retail pricing, and try to generate a quick sale, because that's all part of it. We're trying to get these properties moved within 90 days or so. And then it's kind of rinse and repeat.
Yeah. So with that, I have a number of questions based upon all of that are, they may not be in any particular order. They're just kind of as they're hitting me. So 50,000 letters a month. What's the ratio? How many letters does it take to get to an opportunity? How many opportunities does it take to get to a contract? How many contracts does it take to get to an actual closed deal? What's that look like?
Yeah. Well, the big thing that we track, this is the most important number in my opinion, is how much is it costing me per deal, per closed deal. And historically, we've been averaging about $3,500 in mail cost per deal. So right now, the postage prices just went up and everything. It costs us about 55 cents per letter. We're sending it standard mail. We're sending out a kind of a standard number 10 envelope. It's got those clear plastic windows on it. It almost looks like we're sending them a bill or something like that. But those seem to get the best kind of open rates. and best bang for our buck. So we're sending them that stuff. So yeah, so I'd have to do the math to figure out how many letters that actually is, but it's about $3,500 in postage costs for every deal that we do. And then
Sounds like it's probably 7,000 letters if it's about 55 cents,
yeah,
right?
yeah, something like that. Yeah. And that, so then, I compare that against, what's our average profit per deal. And that's been kind of tracking up over time. I think our first year, it ended up being about $21,000 average gross profit per deal. 2022, I think that ended up being 23,000, then some change. And this year, 2023, that's, I think we're getting almost about 29,000. I have to see how the numbers shake out exactly for the year, but that's gone up. We've been trying to do bigger and bigger deals as we go. So trying
I was going to ask you, like, what's the average
Yeah.
purchase price for, a deal?
Average purchase price per deal, like right now, I would say, anywhere in the $50,000 to $100,000 range. So these are not like huge high dollar property. We've got ones that are quite a bit higher than that, and we've got some that are lower than that sometimes. But that's kind of where the most of the average deals fall these days. I've done property purchases as low as $3,000. And I think on the high end, probably the most expensive ones that we've purchased, like $450,000 to $500,000 range. So,
and what do you attribute to creating essentially the value? It is it just that you're buying off market, so it's not listed, and so you don't have those expenses of a listing and that sort of thing, and you just basically make that difference, or is it something else?
yeah, so we position ourselves to the sellers, the property owners, as the convenience buyer. No different than when
cash buyer too, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. We buy cash and we close quickly, and we make it as easy as possible. It's no different than when you trade your car in at a car dealership. It's
Right.
like you're not going to get top dollar if you trade in your car, but it's the convenient thing to do, and it's what most people do. So I know that it's not for everyone, and a lot of people are fine with going that retail route, listing it with the broker, waiting for that right buyer to come along. So they're not going to get top dollar selling to us for sure, but we do make it easy for them. And in some cases, these properties, it's actually not easy for some of these to find real estate agents sometimes to list a $50,000 piece of land. It's like not many good agents want to take a property like that. And a lot of people have actually, a lot of these sellers have actually already tried to go that route. They've tried to list it and everything, and wasn't positioned right by the broker they chose or whatever. And maybe they listed it too high. Maybe, who knows what the case is, but and maybe they should have done some minor things to make it retail ready, like some brush clearing or clearing some paths or something like that, which they simply didn't do. So there are a number of reasons why they end up doing business with us. But some of those value add things that we do sometimes, that's pretty common. The brush clearing thing is a big thing. And also some of the larger properties, we end up splitting them up in order to create the value. We might buy a 100-acre property and split it up into 5 20-acre properties or 10-acre properties, and then sell them off individually. And when you do that, you'll get a higher price per acre for sure when you can do that.
So the being able to like split up pieces of land, so you're creating smaller parcels, but you can make the value higher. What is the typical use case for the properties that you're buying? Is it just basically like a lot? Or is it multiple lots for residential housing? Or, is it all over the place? Or do you kind of find that it's typically for a similar type of purchase that or purpose with that purchase that is being marketed once you put it up for sale?
Yeah, a lot of the properties that we sell end up being kind of this maybe a hybrid between sort of a recreational type property or home site. We deal with a lot of the larger acreage properties, larger meaning, 5-10 acres plus for the most part. But, the buyers end up being someone that, maybe is looking at it as a potential home site. Maybe they're putting on a mobile or manufactured home. Maybe they're kind of buying it as a recreational property with the idea of maybe building a cabin on it or maybe building a home on it sometime in the future. We get other categories of buyers as well. Neighbors buying the properties. We get, people just sort of accumulating properties in a particular area, land collectors in a way I call them. So there's a kind of all different things. We try to make sure in our due diligence, we try to make sure that a property is buildable, maybe that there aren't any sort of red flags that would make it a non-buildable property during our during our research.
Right.
But, sometimes we discover that it's not buildable for whatever reason. And we still buy those properties, but we just make sure that we're buying it at the right price and make sure that we're reselling it as a property that's simply just recreational type property. So
do you like use any tools or any like software or anything for, number one, finding who to send the letters to, but also like from a diligence standpoint and all of that too? Or is it all pretty much a manual process?
Yeah, we have some really great tools that really make this business possible. It would be very difficult without the data that we've got at our fingertips and some of these advanced tools that we're using. One of the big ones that we use it's called Land ID. Allows us to put in any parcel basically in the country. They've got this enormous database, and we could see various satellite images of the properties. We could see overlays of the lot lines. We could see utilities in the area. We could see contours. We could see so many different things: wetlands, FEMA flood zone, all this kind of stuff. So we can figure out 90% of what a property is pretty much through this tool, and it allows me to actually do this business from I'm here in Southern California and I'm buying properties all over the country, and I never see them in person. So that, along with our processes, really. Sending out someone to actually check out the property in person and the local broker opinions and things like that. As far as pulling our marketing lists and data and everything like that, we use a company called PropStream to pull lists for the most part. And that allows us to kind of build mailing lists, kind of tailored mailing lists to these property owners and reach out to them. So, a lot of, I get asked all the time, people from different countries, hey, can we do this? Can we do this business in Canada or Mexico or Europe? And it's possible, but it would have to be a lot different because those tools, the public records of all the real estate are not like it is here in the United States. So having those tools and having that data available to us kind of makes the whole thing work. And because of that, we get a lot of foreign real estate investors that do this model in the United States. They're living over in Europe or Canada and buying and selling properties in the United States. I think it's pretty cool.
What are the risks? Like, where can things go wrong? What are the pitfalls to look out for? I'm sure you've had a deal probably not work out before, right? So, like, what are those risks? What are the things people have to watch out for?
Well, the big thing that's really super important is to learn how to evaluate properties. If you're looking at, land is harder to comp than single family homes, especially in subdivision and things like that. It's really not too difficult to comp properties in that are all cookie cutter and exactly like the same model sold down the street 3 months ago in similar condition. I mean, it's pretty easy to figure out what those properties are worth. Land is completely different. You could have 3 10-acre properties on the same road in a rural area, and they all have different characteristics and they all have wildly different values. One could be all wetland. One could be all trees. One could be all, FEMA flood zone, have other issues or whatever. So you need to be able to look at those various characteristics and get a good idea of what that property is worth. So that's the biggest risk, is being wrong on what you think the property is worth, like comping against comps that are not apples to apples. I see that all the time. Like, okay, this is a 10-acre property that's sold down the street. It's got to be worth the same as that. Well, that property was a nice premium property, horse meadows, fenced in, like all this infrastructure and stuff like that. And this property is completely raw and, had a lot of slope to it or something like that. Just wildly different values. That could be worth $10,000 an acre, and this property could be worth $2,000 an acre. So that's the big risk. You got to get good at evaluating properties. Like, what is this property worth? And then being conservative too, I see optimistic projections all the time from other investors. And I'm like, well, that would be great if you're going to get that. And that, who knows, that may happen. But I don't think you can bank on those type of optimistic projections. I think you got to be conservative in your projections, and maybe you won't do as many deals, but but it's better to, I
It's
think,
definitely a better way to
live to
go,
fight another
especially if
day.
you're yeah, especially if you're new. You mentioned like characteristics. Like what are characteristics of a good deal?
Yeah. Well, what I look for, kind of the benchmark that I look for is I'm always looking to double my money. So if I'm going to buy a property for $50,000, I want a projected resale price of $100,000. Now, $100,000 is probably not even get like a retail value. Like retail value maybe $115,000, $120,000, but if I projected I could sell it for $100,000, then you've got closing expenses, you've got expenses on both sides, diligence costs, everything like that. Likely, I'm probably not going to double my money, but I am still going to make a pretty good amount of profit on that deal.
Right.
So that's kind of always the benchmark that I'm looking for, and I'm always looking for quality properties as well. I'm always looking for stuff where I try to view it from the buyer's perspective.
Yeah, like what's
if
quality,
I was going to, yeah, well, if I was a buyer and it was and it's different from area to area. If I was a buyer and I was looking for a property in this area, would I walk onto this property and say, okay, this is what I'm looking for? It could have road frontage. That's always, good access, basically. It could have, a topography that is rolling or flat, as opposed to something on the side of a mountain. Could have some nice trees on the property. You don't want it to be all swampland, so it varies depending on the region, what's considered a nice property and what's not a good property. But, you can just generally be looking at the comps, and you can see which properties are selling for more and sort of see what features those have and kind of compare it against the features that the property that you're looking to buy has as well. So,
okay. So if somebody is listening to this, they're like, hey, this sounds really cool. Like how would you tell them to get started? What should they do?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first thing would be to get yourself educated about the land flipping business, how to evaluate properties, how the business model itself works, all the different pieces of the puzzle that you need. It's not rocket science in any way, but you do need to put in the effort and things to make that work. I've put together a whole training program, which I give away for completely free. And that's and you can find that at Land. It's called Land Conquest is the name of our company. So it's landconquest.com. And then that'll take you to my community that I've got. It's, I think we've got 2,300 people in there that are land flippers or want to be land flippers. And in that community there's a classroom tab, and it's got a really extensive training program that I spent hundreds of hours to put together and a lot of money to put it together as well. So I've been told by a lot of people that it's better than a lot of the courses and programs out there that are cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So, but I give it away for free. So
if I guess another offshoot to that too is well, nowadays it's probably not such a big deal, but funding, right? So you got to have the money to buy these things for cash and everything. Do people invest, or do you work with like accredited investors that give you money and you pay them a return on that? Like, how do you do the funding side?
Yeah. Okay. So that kind of ties into why I give away that course for free that I was talking about. I've got a program where I actually fund other investor deals. It's called Partner with Pete. You can find it at partnerwithpete.com. And essentially, what I do is I agree to, if some investor brings a deal, gets it under contract, they submit it on my site, and I'll evaluate it. If it's a deal, then I agree to fund the deal, meaning I'll use my own money to purchase the property. And I'll plug it into all my team's systems, like all of our due diligence processes. If it needs a survey, it needs brush clearing, we'll pay for that out of pocket, and we'll fund all those costs. We'll hire the agent to resell it. We'll do everything basically. And then when the property resells, we split the profits 50-50. So it's a win-win. There's no downside for the investor, because if I lose money on a deal, then it's not like I come back on them and say, hey, pay me the half of the loss or anything like that. No, it's only upside, which is great. And in fact, I just had an investor about a month ago that brought a deal, and they got a wire for $185,000 at the resale closing. So it's a really cool program. And anyhow, but I use my own money to fund these deals, and sometimes depending on cash flow and everything like that, I do have some private investors that lend funds on those property transactions as well. So it just kind of depends. But and then as an investor, if you're looking to fund your own deals, everything, you get 100% of the profit. You also have the risk and, that type of thing as well. So it's, it comes down to personal preference and how you want to do things.
Last question surrounding the topic of like land, real estate, and all that stuff, and then I want to touch a little bit about your entrepreneur journey specifically. Thoughts, predictions for the real estate market, over the next 2 to 3 years. You've been through 2008. You've been through, kind of some ups and downs. We've got pretty high interest rates right now, although they're coming down a little bit. But there a lot of people say that it takes some time for those higher rates to start to have an impact, right? And we're seeing some stuff in the commercial side and everything else. So where do you see the real estate markets going over the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, I think there's going to be, it'll, in my opinion, I think it really depends on what kind of niche you're within in the real estate investing world. I mean, obviously office is going to be struggling still, I believe. That multifamily, I think, is going to be struggling a little bit this year, not nearly like office, but just kind of looking at my predictions. Single family, I think, hopefully that'll respond a little bit quicker to these interest rate drops. So hopefully that's going to have a little bit of tailwind behind that sector. So I think single family will have a pretty good year. And real estate is so local, as it's some of these areas will do better than others, and I think it really depends on kind of what's going on in those particular areas. Are people moving in? Or people moving out? Is there upside to this area or not? So I think a lot of it's local. So keep all that in mind. Land, I'm very bullish on the land side of things, and we've just got a lot of people that are moving out of cities and looking for their own little piece of the world. And, having access to the high-speed internet is not something that's really talked about much, but I think it's a huge thing for actually people, for making sense for people to live in some of these more rural areas. And obviously the trend of working from home as opposed to being in the office all the time for many of these companies is kind of affecting that as well. So I don't know, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before with all these projections, and who knows, maybe the market is going to blow up, this year. But
yeah, I mean,
who knows? I see everything online.
Again,
I see all
right.
opinion.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there's, obviously there's certain areas where things get hit harder. West Coast out by you and stuff tends to get, when things do go down from a real estate standpoint, usually takes a bigger hit and that sort of thing. But, it is local. There's always a deal somewhere, right? That's kind of the thing that I've learned.
You're right.
I've been investing for real estate for 20 plus years too. And kind of the same thing, when it's really, really good, or when it's good, it's really, really good. But then you have those times you got to, maybe hold longer than you wanted to, or that sort of thing to get through and stuff. But overall, they aren't making any more land and that sort of thing. So it's one of those things that over time has that natural bias to go up in value, right? And I think that's something that you have to kind of look at it from a long-term view. You've been an entrepreneur 20 plus years. What are some of the best lessons that you learned for how to succeed as an entrepreneur and in general?
Yeah, so for me, it's about the kind of the word for it, I guess, is the consistency of it all. Like I'm very structured, and I've learned how to structure my workday, everything basically. Working for myself. I've got no one sort of like telling me I got to be at at my desk at a certain time or anything like that. But I impose all that stuff on myself, and I have for a very long time. And I think doing that and the consistency of showing up every day, working through what I consider to be the biggest problems to solve in that particular day, and just doing it on a regular basis, and setting some good clear goals and things to navigate towards, I think are always really important as well. Keeps me focused on what's important in our business.
Anything that you wish you knew sooner as an entrepreneur?
Well, yeah. I mean, I wish I would have gotten into this land flipping thing much sooner. Yeah, for sure. So I biggest mistake I always talk about when the market crashed. That's when I should have been, you know, that's what I should have been getting heavier into real estate investing, but obviously hindsight's 2020. And at the time it didn't seem like such a good idea, but that's when I should have been really, really focused on acquiring as many properties as possible. But
Well, that's actually a really good point in general for entrepreneurship. I think when tough times come or hard times come, especially on a large macroeconomic level, a lot of times people they go into like the turtle going into the shell, right? They're just protecting what
yeah,
they got, and they're not seeing the opportunity that that becomes from all of that and is around them from that. So like if you own a business, tougher times are a great time to gain market share, right? You can, you pour on the sales, pour on your marketing, gain more market share during that time. Again, real estate's bad. It's a great time to pick up properties at a discount and do that stuff. So I think that's true. I think there's a great wisdom in knowing that no matter what situation's out there, there's always kind of that opportunity available, but you have to kind of probably remove the emotional side and stuff and stay logical so you can see it, right? And that's I think the key with all this stuff. I guess the last question I have for you before we do get to your Misfit 3 is just advice for an entrepreneur starting out. Not so much just land flipping, but just in general, anything that you would say, if I'd done this, right from the beginning, it would have made a even more difference for me.
Yeah. Okay. I think the biggest thing that the people probably don't put a lot of effort into is you really got to focus on the opportunity that you're going to move forward with. Like really spend some extra time to figure out, like, think ahead. Like, do I want to start an ice cream shop? But I want to make $1 million a year. Like sometimes you see people do stuff like that. They're like, they start a particular type of business, but their kind of goals are sort of not matched up right. I guess it's possible to make $1 million a year with having an ice cream shop, but there's really better ways to make that type of money if that's what your goal is. So I think really considering the type of business that you're kind of going to be diving into before you actually, make that dive, make that big leap.
I think that's a great point. Yeah, and also matching up the type of business, right? Like if you want to travel, like you said, you travel and do all the things that you do, you need something that you can do from wherever you are, right? Versus like an ice cream place, you got to be there every day and stuff. So you have to match it up with that side of it and everything too. It's the vehicle in the end, right? So you have to align the vehicle with the goal and then find that kind of good match. And that's that's kind of what it sounds like after all the years you got to with land flipping. So, okay, it's time for Pete's Misfit 3. These are the 3 things that he wants you to take away that you can take, put in your business, your life, make a difference for yourself starting today. And the way that I always frame this to every guest that comes on the show is to say, hey, look, if you're going to leave this earth right now, and you can only leave behind your 3 best pieces of wisdom to the generations that come after you to help them live their best life, what would those 3 things be? So, Pete, what are your Misfit 3?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's super important to be a good person. And I know it sounds simple, but being a good person will actually lead to lots of opportunities in business and life and a fulfilling life. If you're gonna walk around being a jerk to everyone that you meet, that's going to come back to you. So you're going to be living a stressful life. You're not going to have the type of opportunities that you want, and ultimately, it's just going to cause you a lot of problems. So definitely, number 1 is be a good person. Number 2. Do something that you want to do. You don't want to spend your life doing some sort of thing that you hate getting up for every day. So, learn to make money from something that you love to do. And I know that sounds kind of cliche as well, but I love doing, what I do, land flipping. I love the deals. I love that. Like that kind of really excites me. So, I feel very aligned, and when you feel very aligned, like different times in my life when I've felt aligned like that, everything just seems to work. If you're getting up and you just doesn't feel right, with whatever you're doing, then you might want to reevaluate what you're doing. And then the other thing is consistency. So consistency has been a very big thing for any of the success I've had. And it can be viewed in many different ways. First of all, I'm very consistent getting up and doing what I'm supposed to be doing every day. I'm very consistent going to the gym every day. I'm very consistent sending out our marketing to get all of our deals. It's like I know that the consistency is kind of like a superpower for me. I feel like it's a superpower, even though it's not rocket science or anything like that. But I feel like the consistency is one area that a lot of entrepreneurs fall short. And, if they would just put some focus on doing the things that they need to do on a regular basis without fail, that a lot of the big results will follow. So.
Pete, that's an excellent Misfit 3, and I can't agree more. Consistency actually solves a lot of challenges that entrepreneurs have. I like the second one on alignment too. If people do want to learn more about you, where should they go?
Yeah, definitely join our community at landconquest.com. Also, I'm on social media. The handle is Partner with Pete, and we've got a YouTube channel as well, which is at Turning Profit. So, any of those places you can find me.
Yeah, we'll link to all that in the show notes so that people can find the best show notes in the business for reasons I will talk about more in a second. But first, for those of you that are new to the Misfit Entrepreneur, it's your first episode with us. Welcome. It's such an honor to have you with us. And I hope you become a regular listener, watcher, subscriber. For all of you that are with us week in and week out, I cannot thank you enough for your support of the show. You are what makes this go in over 100 countries every single week. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And make sure and go out and check out the show notes for this episode. Why? Because I do them myself as part of my personal growth routines. Every single week, I go back through these episodes with great guests like Pete, and I take my best pieces of wisdom and tips and, habits, insights, and things that are useful, and I share them with you. So go out and check those out. And then go out and give this episode a rating and review, like and comment on it. Help share Pete's message, because we all know, and I say this in every episode, one great episode can change someone's life. Maybe something that Pete shared today was that missing link you were looking for to get to your next level. So share this with others. And again, Pete, thank you so much for coming on, sharing all your wisdom and insight today.
Well, thanks for having me, Dave. You do a great interview, that's for sure.